Emma Wiesner, member of the Swedish Centre Party. She's a EU parliamentarian. So, Emma Wiesner, what is your take? How is it going? We're at the final days here of the COP.
Yeah, it's going too slow. The progress has not been the progress that we wanted. I think it was a good sign that the first days of the COP that we managed to finalize pieces of Article 6. That was the ninth COP on where this article was on the agenda. So I think that was a very good sign early on, and it gave some positive energy into negotiations. But since then, the process has been very, very slow. Last night, we got new documents showing the progress of where we are so far, and there's still so many items remaining. So I guess this document, you couldn't really tell that we are running up Thursday with only 1-2 days left. That document could have been produced many days ago. So it's a bit disappointing to see that we're not closing in more on the most hot topic, the finance.
So, if you elaborate a bit on what's going on in the finance aspect here of the loss and damage and the adaptation processes, what can you tell us?
I came here with 3 clear goals on what I want this COP to achieve. It's the new finance goal. It's a global goal on climate adaptation that we're finalizing, going towards that so we can finalize it in the next COP. And then Article 6, finally finalizing it. On the last one, we have reached a lot of good success. I think it's almost finished now, as it looks like from the documents. The same with the goal on adaptation. We have done a lot of progress. But on financing, it's going really slow. The document that came still shows that we are in 2 sides of the camp, 2 sides of the spectra. 2 options remain that are very far from each other. And it's the ask from the developed country and the ask of developing countries that are not reflecting each other. And I'm a bit disappointed also by the EU effort so far being the bridge builder in between. Now in this latest version, it looks that we are further away from each other than ever, rather than closing in and finding compromises that could bridge. So we will see. The last 2 days will be really interesting if we can find common ground, because we need this global goal on climate adaptation. What's at stake is the next COP in Brazil, where all of the countries are going to raise their ambitions so that we get out of the 3.1 hell climate scenario. Everyone needs to raise ambition in the next COP, and in order to do so, we need to have financing. I mean, that's the only way of having countries trusting in the process, trusting in that we can raise the ambitions. It's when rich countries, developed countries are doing their homework, actually cutting their emissions, and contributing with finance. If you can rely on that there is solid finance behind you, then you can raise your ambitions and set new higher targets. So this is a lot at stake, and the financing goal that we're having is running out. We already reached it. So we have to agree, but so far it looks like we're too far away.
So this probably means that the COP will go on overtime. It's been going on overtime any COPs. What do you say about the possibilities of you having to stay on?
I think it will be. Over time, it normally is. But it's also good that it's mainly one remaining issue, and it is the financing. So we should be able to finalize. But I just want to stress how important it is, and also how different approaches different negotiators have had. So there's basically 2 different elements that are hindering the negotiations to progress. The first one is, should we talk about who contributes first and then set a target, or should we set a target first and then talk about who should fulfill it? And here, EU developed countries have had very different approaches compared to developing countries that said we first have to hear a number and then we can discuss the rest. Whereas EU say we don't want to buy the pig in the box or the pig in the bag. We cannot just set a number without knowing who will pay. Like it's impossible to set any figure if we don't know like the basis for contribution. That's the first one. First approach that is sort of stalling the negotiations and different tactics in it. And then the second item is, should you see it as a onion approach where you have finance in different layers, or should we set one goal as it is now? We have one goal of financing. The EU is now reasoning maybe we could have the public finance set as one goal and then broaden that to the more private side of things, which opens up a new toolbox, if you may, but also so much more questions to be solved and added. And I think too little progress have been made before the COP in order to go into this new type of approach. And also maybe the same with the contribution base in a way. So still two approaches that collage in two of these items. And let's say I'm a bit disappointed because now there is a vacuum. Everyone is wondering where the US is going, what they will do. So there is a lack of leadership, and here's a vacuum that EU could step into. And rather than taking that step and saying, hey guys, we are willing to approach you, we're willing to find a solution, we have an amount that we are willing to pay, we are now further away from each other because EU has now different approaches than a lot of the parties here. So in that sense, I would have requested more leadership from the EU, a clear bid, no like low hanging bid or something very shy. We should be modest, we should be brave, and we should put something on the table. I think that could have really helped. So that's what I'm trying to achieve from European Parliament, pushing the EU leaders to be more brave on this.
So thank you very much, Emma. In terms of criticism for the COP process, there was just a letter out a few days ago from the Club of Rome criticizing the COP process in terms of not really being functional. So what are your thoughts? I mean, I know you know about this letter and you've read it. So what are your thoughts about this? It's Joan Rockström, Christiana Figueres, among others, that have been signing this.
I think there are many good elements in that letter, not at all, not the least selecting the host country. I think there we have had very strong criticism on the fact that we are here, not so much on my behalf, but on behalf of all of the journalists, NGOs, civil organization, young people that want to attend that simply doesn't feel safe or cannot participate. So I think there are many reasons why the selection criteria should be stricter, but also the way this is organized. In a way, I feel that you need a big event in order to have push from media, the general public and so on. But there are also many people here that do not contribute. How we are selecting, for example, the oil lobby has been questioned a lot. Why are there so many lobbyists from the bad side in this event and so on? I think there much more can be done. But also in terms of organization, I think a lot needs to be learned, how negotiations are done. And I can also feel, I've been to the previous COP as part of the EU delegation and to this COP. And I can also feel that we, the parties, the countries, the EU has to think about COP in a different way. This cannot be a New Year's Eve rocket where we look at it once a year and we are happy about it and then we completely forget about it the rest of the year. I think that's completely, and that's also why this COP is so slow, why the process is so slow. Well, the financing isn't there because the EU member states are not discussing financing of climate action in developing countries in between the COPs. It's a once per year issue that's at stake. If we talked much more about our responsibilities on global level in between the COPs, I think that could also bring more to the table. For example, when it comes to the NDC, EU acts as one and we have one NDC. But when it comes to financing, it's all about each contribution from each member states where they have to go back to their governments asking for money from the individual ones. Why are we not talking about this jointly? Because we are one party here and we should act more as one party. So both the organization of the COP itself, I think many of the elements of the Club of Rome letter is very important, but also I bring a lot of how EU can change and be better as negotiator at the COPs, because I'm now starting to see flaws in the system, both in terms of the organization of COP, but also how EU is dealing with the COP.
So, Emma Wiesner, coming back from the COP in a few days, and also, I mean, setting the scenes, looking into the process of leading up to the Brazil COP. What can you do? How will you push for this change to happen, to EU to really address the COPs, in between the COPs?
I think now with the MFF revision, I mean the EU budget, we can talk more about it, but we also need to talk about the frameworks that we have in terms of financing. We have the emission trading scheme, CBAM, we have different EU schemes in place where that could contribute to common and shared finance. But we should also look at, can we do more in terms of organizationing ourselves in between the COPs? So both in terms of legislation, but also organization. I think the COP delegation should also work in between the COPs. Now we are summoned once a year and it's different people every time. But if the EU has a standing, for example, committee on the COPs that always meet, always interact, we're having a lot of meetings here, for example, with IPCC, ICAO, so on, Corsia. Well, we could have done that before the COP so we can spend more time here actually in the negotiation room. So there's a lot that can be done that I will bring back to European Parliament to make us more smooth and efficient. But specifically in terms of the funding, I think.
Well, thank you very much, Emma Wiesner, for this and for your hard work. Thank you, and best of luck, and fingers crossed for the final draft.
Also, one more, if I can add one more element. I think there's also a really valuable discussion that EU needs to have, because we are right now having Fit for 55. EU leaders are applauding themselves, oh, we've done so much. And then going down here, where everyone we met is stating, well, the world needs to be carbon neutral by 2050. That means if you in the EU are carbon neutral by 2050, we will not make it. You have to lead. You have to lead by example. So I think the most important discussion to have is, are EU really doing enough? Should we really applaud ourselves? Because the signal from here is very evident that we are not. And I think that's also very important to talk with the European Parliament, with EU leaders. We shouldn't just be proud of what we have done. We should raise the bar and do even more. And the political signals back home are very worrying right now, where leader after leader, minister after minister is thinking that we are doing enough. We have already cut our emissions, we already have systems in place, so we're already done. I think that's absolutely the wrong approach to this. We can and must do even more.
Thank you very much, Emma Wiesner. Thank you.